What are the big lessons from memetics and evolution and the stuff we've been talking about in this module? Um, I'm going to put it into 5 big terms, but let me start with a little metaphor here. Genes are to animals as memes are to businesses or societies or to any group. Uh, Genes are the unit of biological evolution. Memes, we're dealing with cultural evolution. And of course, culture includes not just things like art and TV and songs or religions or whatever else. There's a ton of things, including the sort of mundane stuff like how do you make your stone axe? How do you make your Bluetooth mouse? All those things. So, our big lessons. Number one, big things are made of small things. Uh, Animals, it's tempting to look at them as the unit for biological evolution, but really it's the small part that we need to be looking at. It's the genes. We need to look at businesses. We need to look at animals. We need to look at all these bigger things, but we have to understand that they're made out of these smaller things. These mixes of small things evolve to match circumstances. So this might be something like norms around how businesses use email. That's like a little thing. Are you expected to answer your email after 5 p.m. or whatever else? All these little things, they're going to work differently with other little things. So maybe checking your email after 5 o'clock becomes a lot easier after the invention of the BlackBerry and later the smartphone, so that your work email can go to you after 5 p.m. That's going to lead to other changes. It's going to change how business gets done in good and bad ways. So maybe people are more available when we check our email too much, but maybe we're also burnt out and less creative, and maybe that hurts us in the long run. I don't know, but it's the mix that we need to think about, right? So the big things are the little things and the mix of those little things. I was listening to a podcast the other day about Taoism, and they split up the world into 3 basic components. I'm going to paraphrase here, but basically it was form, material or matter, and then I think it was energy. Yeah, well, it was chi, right? Chi is not exactly the same as energy, but it's kind of like energy. So you think about something like, say, this coffee mug is made out of ceramic, but without this particular shape, you can't keep coffee in it, right? So the form and the material matter. And of course, you also have to heat it up. You have to apply energy to get it to work. So the form, in this case, of a complex system made out of these little components is what is the mix of these things. Now that mix matters based on the circumstances, and those circumstances include the things that are evolving themselves. You literally are the environment. You're not the whole environment, but you are a part of your environment. So you change your behavior to adapt to circumstances based on what you're looking for in your life, right? What memes are important to you. Maybe you decide that it's really important to end poverty because you've ingested that meme and it's stuck in your brain. You have changed the environment that we live in by changing yourself in that case. Right? Now, you are a small part of the environment, but you are a part of it. So those circumstances, it's not that you evolve to match circumstances and then you're done. You evolve to match circumstances, which changes the circumstances, which means that you or someone else has to evolve even further. Which is an interesting thing, but it makes life harder. That's going to come up again in point 5. Point 4, we can understand these complex evolved systems with hindsight, right? So we can look back and make sense of things like, well, LOL, that makes sense as a thing to do, right? Especially given when it came about. It really started to emerge when texting became big, and that was back when we had 12 buttons on our phone, not a touch screen with a keyboard. So we can make sense of that in hindsight, but we can't predict, right? We can predict some general things. We can predict things like People are going to continue to pursue profits next year. We can make some small predictions, but we can't predict everything, and we can't predict things with much specificity. So we can understand why LOL sticks around as a meme, right? We can understand why it happened, but if we go back in time, we couldn't have predicted specifically that people would say LOL. We might have predicted in general that people would find shorthand ways to communicate by text, but we couldn't really say exactly how they're going to do that. So, memes, evolution. This is really important foundational stuff to understand the world that we live in. And of course, this all matters in a network context. So this isn't super networky itself, but networks are a classic example of a big thing made out of small things. Evolution, just thinking in evolutionary terms, is going to be really important for better understanding the networks that we do see in the real world. But of course, it's just important in general to understand very broadly how things are working, what the things are that are working, and what we can understand and predict, what we can do with that knowledge of what it is we're dealing with.